I want to sort of begin in the middle with, before we talk about how you found yourself on The Real World, what was your life like before The Real World?
Oh, it was deeply typical. We grew up middle class, just about middle class. I went to public school in New York. I lived in the suburbs, had a nuclear family, mom, dad, my brother, and a dog. And in so many ways, I'd say really, really typical. I don't know if you'd call it atypical, that my family watched a tremendous amount of television. It was just a part of our lives always. My folks were not, I don't want to trash them, they were not big readers, but they were news hounds, and we got 4 newspapers to the house every day and magazines. Everyone was always reading, but we watched a lot of TV and read a lot of newspapers, magazines, and I read a lot of comic books.
We're both members of Generation X.
Yeah.
How do you think that experience, which is one that I think if we polled, 10 Gen Xers, they would say 8 out of 10 of them would say, that's all we watched a lot of TV.
Yeah.
We were influenced by TV. We were influenced by the films that came out in that era. And when we weren't watching TV, we were just out and about and doing crazy things that our parents didn't know what we were up to. But how do you think being shaped by television as a child, as a young man, prepared you or didn't for ultimately what has become reality television?
I think for us, TV was a constant. I mean, we didn't, I think everyone knows, we didn't have computers, we didn't have smartphones. We watched a crap ton of TV, we listened to a lot of music, a lot of music. We read things, and I think all of those things just sort of feed into what would be reality TV when it started. When we look at reality TV when it started, like, it's a TV show, regular people living their lives, we're on the box, and it's moving along quickly, all that jump cutting, and lots of music. I mean, that was kind of what my teen years felt like, jump cutting and lots of music and moving fast, and that's what it became.
Yeah. What made you want to be a part of the cast of The Real World?
Oh, I tried out for The Real World because, one, I was a fan of the show, and I loved TV, and I thought it'd be fun, I thought it'd be cool, and I was broke. That was a real big mitigating factor. I had just lost a gig. I was 23 years old. I had to move back in with my mom and dad, which is the dream of every college graduate. And I'm watching season 2 of Real World Los Angeles, and they put up an ad. Do you want to be on Real World 3 San Francisco? And I'm looking at myself sitting on my parents' couch and said, yes, I think I'd like to try that.
And you'd seen the first 2 seasons already.
Oh yeah, no, I was a fan.
You were a fan.
Yeah.
What did your parents say?
My parent, I want to tell some great story that, like, they thought it was a crazy idea. They thought, like, what are you doing? What is this about? No, they thought it'd be cool. They thought it was a great idea. And,
you're gonna be on TV.
Oh man, that's living the dream here. It's gonna happen.
Right.
And it took 6 months of auditioning, and I didn't have a plan B. So they were kind of along for the ride. Like every couple of weeks, I'd make the next round. Like, what are you doing? Like, I'm trying out for The Real World. So they had a chance to get kind of excited about it as the reality got closer. We were a TV household, so I think my parents would say it was almost an inevitability that I'd wind up on television at some point.
So describe the audition process, because I didn't realize it took 6 months before you ultimately cast.
Let's see. You send in a letter and a photo saying why you want to be on the show. Congratulations. Round 2. Then you have to fill out a 15-page application and film a video. Make it as creative as you like. I was standing on the Long Island Expressway saying, I'm trapped here. This is the main route to get in and out of Long Island. Please help me. Then the next round is they interview you on the phone while a friend videos you. Then they send in someone to film you for a day on camera. Someone follows you around for a day.
What did you do on that day that they followed you around?
That day, that is the day I almost didn't get on The Real World.
Tell me about it.
So they brought this dude out. It's around my age, and I live on the island with my folks. So I went into the city, I hung out with a bunch of friends. I went to see this friend, went to see that friend, went to see this one, then headed home back to the island to have dinner with my parents. And I only realized later that the entire day I barely spoke because all of my friends and my family were completely hamming it up for the cameras. They would not shut up. And I was just kind of yesing them the whole day. And as the story goes, the assistant to one of the producers was watching this tape come in. And one of the producers looked at it, John Murray had said, like, I looked at it like, okay, so that didn't work out. I didn't make the show. He was cutting me. But Kara Evans watched all the way to the end. And then at the end of the day, I got on the phone with my best friend and then went through the day with him and trashed everybody. I just regurgitated it and talked this, like, wouldn't shut up. And this, and my dad is like, he, instead of sitting on the couch, he gets up and sits down, Spielberg over here, like, so I can be on camera. Like, I want to get everyone in the shot, you know, and then open the window so the light would be right. Like, they were ridiculous people. And I did that, and Kara called, like, John, he's funny. Come look at this. And, like, you know, so I was funny and talking crap. And so, like, oh, no, that's great. I'll make the next round. So being obnoxious got me on reality TV. I know it's shocking to everybody.
Well, I mean, not today in 2026. Anybody watching this today would say that's not shocking at all. But I think back then, you know, it almost makes you feel like, because there's been so much written about the early years of reality television versus where we are today, that it makes it sometimes seem as if, no, the people who cast and produce the shows that we watch now have maybe more nefarious, and nefarious is probably too strong of a word, but like, they want people who are trash talkers. They want people who talk a lot of crap about, you know, potential castmates. But it sounds like even back then in the early days that they were like, no, what makes you interesting is that you're a little bit of a smart aleck.
Yeah, they did, what they wanted was conflict. They wanted, if you film 7 people who are just getting along all the time, it will be boring. You know, they're not gonna have like conversations, they're not gonna have debates. And I think that's what they wanted, was debate. They wanted like discourse. Our season, they lucked into a lot of it, both the ridiculous and also, you know, the deeply interesting, which would be, you know, kind of world changing in a lot of ways. But you're right. I mean, it went from that, you know, we're gonna have people who are coming from different places, who have a different point of view, and what happens when you put them together. And they shouldn't be living together. They shouldn't be friends. They shouldn't know one another. So what happens? That's interesting. Now, yeah, I mean, they've moved the ball a little bit further down the field, and like, we want them to fight.
Were you worried about being in a house with people that you normally would not necessarily be friends with?
No, I think you gotta understand. Going into this, there's with a few exceptions who I can mention, the idea of going on reality TV, even back then, you know, the idea like, I don't have any talent or skills or anything as an entertainer really at all, but I am interesting enough and charming enough that I should be on television. There's a certain level of ego and narcissism that has to go into this, that you're not thinking about, you know, the landmines that you're going to be sleeping on top of by doing this, and how dumb an idea that this could possibly be. I mean, we know now, my wife Pam and I watch now, we've joked about, like, we should give a master's class about how to be on reality TV, watching people like, you know, one, do you want to be on reality TV? Right there's a red flag that says maybe you shouldn't do this. It could be a bad idea. Like, and don't talk about your parents. That's Thanksgiving for the rest of your life when you say something about them on television. You know, so I wasn't even thinking about that I'm gonna be bumping into people like that. You know, it's just gonna be cool.
It's gonna be cool.
It's gonna be cool.
That's all that matters, especially when you're 23 years old.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
It's cool.
You know, it's the real world. It's MTV. It's MTV.
It's MTV.
MTV was, back in the 90s,
everything.
That's all we did.
That's all we did is watch MTV.
When we weren't watching something else, was MTV. It was just on.
On all the time.
Yeah.
In the background.
There,
yeah,
you know.
No doubt.
Oh,
no doubt.
yeah.
One thing that you said that's interesting is, and people who are watching this now, when they see this interview, they're going to think, when you say, oh, I filmed myself, like, and I had people film me, that you just like popped up your phone. But describe how hard it would have been to film yourself back then in the mid-1990s?
You had to have a buddy who had a camera.
Which it was like, how much money in those days?
Expensive. It was a real, it wasn't something you didn't, it wasn't a disposable pen. It was a camera which didn't actually have VHS tape, which no one knows what I'm talking about. It had small tapes which you had to transfer onto there, and then you had to edit the VHS from tape to tape, which is a whole other thing as well, which I'm pretty sure my mom was a teacher, so I think I was editing it I'm not even sure I edited it at the house. I think I had to use like the AV squad at the elementary school to do it.
Right.
So it was like you had to want it.
Yes,
you had
badly.
You had to put time in.
Because we put a lot of time and effort into it. Okay, so let's talk about your season of The Real World, which was, for the first 2 seasons, it was cool, it was fun, but I always feel like your season became one where we meaning the people who watched the show, saw the inherent power that a show like this, a reality television show, what kind of change it could have on the way people think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think even the producers knew what kind of impact it was going to have. I think they were hopeful for it, which is why they were doing it. And what we're talking about is Pedro Zamora, that they had decided in 1994 to put someone on The Real World who was living with HIV, who, as we'd find out, he had an AIDS diagnosis while he was living with us. And for young people at the time, AIDS was everywhere. For the gay community, it was everything. It was just so prevalent. So to do that, they felt like this is going to be speaking to this generation. Pedro was a 22-year-old AIDS educator and gay activist. He was born in Cuba, came over when he was 10, and he was gay and sexually active when he was young. He tested positive when he was 17. He probably contracted it much earlier than that, probably as a much younger teenager. And when he found out he was positive, at first he didn't tell anyone, but then later got educated, met other people who were living with HIV, and decided that he wanted to dedicate the rest of his life, the time he had, and not even thinking that way because he's a young person. Even living with AIDS at the time, I don't think he thought that I won't be here for very long. But I want to educate young people about HIV so that they don't contract the virus the way I did. We are not talking to our young people about sex education and HIV, and I want them to know. And he was a fairly well-known national figure, and he was incredibly young, at just 18, 19 years old. He was a remarkable speaker. I mean, he could really, we have friends who talk about being at a convention, being at a conference, and there's 1,000 men in the audience, and to hear them describe it, like it's almost exclusively gay men. He said, and it's kind of a catty bunch. It's also a gossipy bunch. We're all talking. There's 1,000 of us, and no one's being quiet for any of the speakers. And several of them had told me who didn't even know each other at the conference. I talked about it later, like, oh no, then Pedro took the stage. And within a minute, the whole place becomes silent because he was really speaking to them and really speaking to them in a way they hadn't heard. He was also challenging them. And he was funny and soap opera handsome, and they put him on television. And millions of people got to learn what it was like to know someone who was actually living with AIDS. And at the time, it was remarkable because no one knew anyone was living with AIDS. You would see these young men on the news who looked like they stepped out of a concentration camp. They're dying. That was your image of someone living with AIDS. And here's Pedro, handsome, happy, eloquent, and nice. And a lot of people saw that. Like, he could be my friend, he could be my son, he could be my brother, And he broke through in a way that I don't think, I know, the producers just didn't even realize. Millions of people, internationally, President of the United States talking about him. It was a lot.
Part of as you alluded to earlier, part of what producers then and now are looking for is conflict. When did you learn that you would be living with Pedro, and what went through your mind? You're from New York City, you were, I think, the only one from New York City,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
In that season. But that even then, that didn't necessarily mean that you were more aware of this disease than somebody who was living in the heartland.
Right.
When did you first learn that you would be living with Pedro, that he had AIDS? And what was the dynamic like in the house with everybody when you all got together the first time?
I am a self-described liberal pinko, and that's who I was back in my 20s as well. I'm an art student, I'm very, very open-minded, but I was thrown a bit when I'm auditioning for the show. I'm in New York City at the MTV offices, and they are interviewing me as part of the show. And then they asked me at one point, how would you feel about living with someone who is HIV positive? And I said, oh, really? And I gave them a very, lefty answer. Like, well, I don't know anyone who's living with HIV. I don't think I've probably met someone. I don't, but it's not an experience I've had. And I'd be very, very open to learning from someone like that and living with someone like that. Inside, I'm thinking like, oh my God, they're gonna put us in a house with someone who's living with AIDS. Because as open-minded and as liberal as I was, it is 1994, and every time you think of somebody with AIDS, it's like covering them like in a shroud. It says AIDS on it.
Yeah.
But that changed, just as it did for people watching the show, when I met Pedro, because I wasn't going to be living with a virus. I didn't know, it's like, so when we moved in, I'm trying to size up, like someone here has AIDS, it's like, they say that someone is, and I'm talking to people, and it wasn't until we had chosen up as roommates, and Pedro's gonna be my roommate, that and we're chatting. And it's like, so what do you do? And he asked me, like, I'm a cartoonist, I'm trying to do this, that. It's like, what do you do? And Pedro later, like, he took a beat, because, like, he doesn't know. So he said, I'm an AIDS educator. I was like, oh, it's Pedro. Okay. And as weird as it sounds, to put it this way, my first reaction was being relieved, because I'm not walking around with I'm not gonna be living with the AIDS virus walking around in 2 legs. As simple as it sounds, I'm just living with Pedro. Like, it actually became a person. And then really, that was what I felt like, oh, okay, I'm not scared of him or it. And then, and then I felt bad, because he seemed so nice. And this is like in the first hour and a half that we're hanging out. And then he became our friend, and then he became, and then became my little brother.
It felt like for us watching it that when we saw the first episode of the season, he was young and vibrant and very healthy, and then he wasn't towards the end. Was that truncated at all, or?
No, we lived in the house for 6 months, and it was unfortunate on every level that he got sicker when we were on the show. And you don't exactly see it, because literally, he's our housemate. We see him every day. He's my roommate. I see him every day, and you don't see it. I think we were a little taken back when we saw the first episode, which we watched when we were done. The whole thing was done. I was like, oh goodness, like, he lost a lot of weight. He doesn't look quite so good. Yeah. It was shocking. It wasn't what he wanted his story to be either. He said it all the time. I don't want to be the sickly AIDS boy on MTV. It would have meant so much more to him if he had 6 months of good health, and he got to tell his story and didn't get sick, but it became this warts and all story. And an honest story. They really, we talk about this. So my fellow castmate and housemate on the show, Pam Ling, who is now my wife, when we first saw the show, they had a wrap party in the house. We're in the house that we were living in. Whole crew is there, we're watching the show. And when we saw the first episode, she started hysterically crying. And what she had said was, and it was years before she could grip what was going on, but it was because she felt they got it right. That they're going to do right by him. She could tell in those first 2 episodes, oh my God, that's Pedro. That's who he is. And, you know, he was here and he did it for all the right reasons. And people are going to see it. People are going to see this. And it meant a lot to us. And that was before he got sick. That was when it just started. We were just so relieved. It was worth it.
Talk to me about how, because it's been more than 30 years, but even as you pull these memories to the front to talk about them, you're still emotional. The emotions that I saw, that I witnessed on this show between you and Pam and the rest of the castmates, is still very much at the front of who you are. It seems like it's still kind of raw for you.
Yeah. I mean, it has been 32 years, and he has been gone longer than he was alive. And it takes almost nothing for Pam and I to get upset when we think about it. And I think it has a lot to do with how much we know that we would all still be family, that even all these years later, I mean, it's probably different for me and Pam. We kind of live with the show every day. It's there for us. So, and he's a part of our lives in a lot of ways. There's pictures hanging in our house. When our kids were little, it's who's that? And we told them. So he's still very, very present. And I think what still affects us is how much he has still affected people. There are people who weren't born when we did the show who come up and talk to us about him, that they saw reruns, they watched it on Paramount Plus and saw the show, and they decided to come out to their family. And this is why he did the show. He did to speak to young people just like him. So they would feel brave and empowered, and they could see that they could live their lives openly. And it worked. And what hurts is that we like to think he knows. We like to think that he knows what he accomplished, but it would probably mean a lot more to us if he was here and could see all that he did. It was just supposed to be this dumb show, this reality TV show with kids living in a house with rock music playing for the soundtrack. And he changed the minds of millions and millions of people. And it would have been nice if he knew how much he affected people and how he changed the world. I mean, he really did. Yeah. People rarely get to do that and say that. And we were also aware when it was happening that this could be something that really changes how people look at an entire culture of people. And it did. So it is always right there on the surface. It's part of our lives.
People, and we'll move on because I know this is an incredibly emotional subject for you, but I think that people who will watch this now should understand that there was, in this country certainly, there was, before Pedro, and then there was after Pedro.
Yeah.
You and I are in the same generation. I was watching this show. I didn't know anybody. I think I had a family member, a distant relative who had HIV, but not somebody that I interacted with on a regular basis. But here was somebody who was my age, who, like you said, could be my brother, my friend, and the way that he talked about living with it, the way you all interacted with him, in all of its, with the challenges and some of the conflicts, but also in the tremendous amount of love and attention that you all shared with each other when it came to Pedro. People cannot understand. Young people today can't understand because, first of all, HIV is not the death sentence that it was back in the early 90s, the late 80s, early 90s. And so people are going to struggle to understand why Pedro Zamora on national television, on MTV, would have the effect that he did on millions of people, to the point, as you indicated, where the President of the United States would come to know his name.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's hard to put it in a context that you could understand in the generation we're in now, the culture we're in right now, with social media and so much reality TV, that someone could go on television and live their lives and show them who you are and change a culture that after that, people had so much more empathy for people who were living with AIDS. People had more openness about the gay community. And because they thought of Pedro, they thought of him like, well, that's like Pedro. You know, if they met someone who was HIV positive, they thought of him and they liked him and they felt like they knew him. They felt like they lost him. And this was and now they met someone and they you know, they could feel for them. Opposed to before, they weren't. Yeah. They weren't. And I don't know if we can possibly capture that lightning in the bottle again in that way. I mean, I wish they could. The world has changed, the culture has changed, society has changed. Can a young person go on TV and all the words we use now, speak their truth, live their, you know, whatever, this, you know, it wasn't that. He was just, you know, he was this beautiful kid with inarguably a funny accent who was really handsome and had a boyfriend, and he had friends who like were all different shapes and sizes, and everyone's like, oh, you know, like that's not me, but I could be some of those other people. I can be, you know, they could understand his world better.
As you said something interesting, and I've been thinking about it as I've listened to you, and I think only you can answer this because you knew him and you lived with him. He was your roommate, somebody you loved and cared about, which is certainly you, his family, the people he cared about, the people who loved him would want him here today. But his death was so seismic that I wonder, how would he feel? You said that he's out there and you think that he knows, is what you said to me. And if he does know, then he knows how he changed the world. Does that change the perspective a little bit about his death?
Meaning that if he had lived, would it be different? I think that if he had lived, he was just getting started. I think that although his death was so tragic and broke the hearts of millions of strangers across the world, and the empathy was so vast, yes, it did a tremendous amount for the AIDS community, for the gay community. But he was 22, and he was formidable, and he was just getting started. I don't know what he would have done after this, but he would have done a lot. And I think the contribution he would have given the world had he lived longer, I almost think it definitely would have outweighed losing him. Now, that is because of our love for him, and we'd like nothing more than that. And we do think about it all the time, you know, where he would be now, you know. He'd probably be married, he'd probably have kids, might have gone back to school and became a doctor, which is something he always wanted to do. I just don't know. But, you know, our children, Pam and I, our children are approaching the age that Pedro was when we lost him. And, you know, I'm the same age as my parents when I went on the show. So it's that I've never thought about that, but it's weird because when you were in the house, you're all in your 20s, and you are adults, but now that you look at your children, you're like, you're still a baby. Oh yeah. Right?
Pedro was a baby. He was 22 years old, right? 20.
Yeah. No, I mean, Pam and I we acknowledge that then. Like he was he was 22 years old, and in so many ways the oldest person you could possibly meet because of the level of maturity and also just the level of bravery that he, you know, talk about talking truth to power. He was scared of no one when he needed to talk. When he was talking about the rights of gay people, the rights of people living with AIDS, there was no one who was like, you know, he's 100 feet tall. But, you know, when we were packing up to leave the house, and he had decided to live in San Francisco and not move back to Miami with his family, he was just a mess because he's this kid who was leaving home for the first time. He was just this 22-year-old kid from Miami who the longest he'd ever been away from home was when he was living with us on television. as the longest by a huge stretch. He was 22 years old. So, I mean, it's probably why we got along so well. I mean, he needed, you know, he needed some older siblings around to, you know, give him crap and also help him keep it together here and there. And, you know, he was very, I mean, even then, many times, like very much a kid. And that's why I still think of him in so many ways. Like he's stuck in amber.
Yeah.
You know, this 22-year-old. You know, I can't imagine him being as old as us. You know, but I can. He would just be better looking. That's all.
In my mind, which is, there was this fascinating experiment that started with the real world, and there had been some attempts at, you know, earlier documentaries about filming people in real life settings, but the real world shattered this like norm of what could be possible on television, and then Pedro happened, and he changed the world, and then people tried to replicate that, but it never did, and it just became about conflict and messy. Like right now, reality TV, the messier you are, the more, you know, aggro you are, the more unwilling you are to see other people's point of view. That's great, but I don't know if it's added to the public discourse. It feels like even though there's been shows that are more popular than the real world, we have not yet matched the level of understanding about human dynamic, like interpersonal dynamic, and understanding people who are not like us in the way that we did before Pedro and after Pedro. Does that make sense? Yeah.
I mean, for starters, I am just about the last human being on earth who should be criticizing reality TV. I owe everything I have to being on reality TV, more so than most people who have done it. I'm not talking money and fame and whatnot. I owe everything to it. That's it. I do feel, there's a missed opportunity that you couldn't have a better example. Maybe it's too towering an example. Maybe it's too much to think that, well, we couldn't possibly replicate that, and why try? But considering the good that came out of his time on reality TV, you would think people would be trying to roll up their sleeves again and try to just make that work somehow. We have wandered so far off base camp from what it could be, and I'm not, you know, it's television, it's entertainment, it's a business. They're doing this to get eyeballs on the screens. You know, that's their job, absolutely. But with a bit of work, they could maybe do both instead of just it being game shows or people who are fighting all the time, and a lot of people will spin it off to being influencers, celebrities, and, you know, and our culture somehow, you know,
rewards that.
Yeah, and social media born out of, you know, reality TV. I mean, I do believe that, you know, reality TV became explosive, and then the next step became everybody can have an audience, no matter who you are, and no matter what opinion you have. You can be out there, but not enough people who have sat and thought, if we do this and put these people here, and we tell this story in a way that's truthful and honest and a little bit entertaining. I mean, don't forget, our third season was very entertaining. It was good television. It was good TV.
It was good TV.
It was not like watching some dry documentary about, you know, this is how we make dairy products. No, it's like, you know, these are young people who are goofing around and fooling around and fighting and getting jobs and losing jobs and dating and this and that, and, you know, and the music of the day and jump cutting and what. It was great television. It was a good deal. Like, you know, sit down and watch it. I just think there's enough talented people out there say, like, we can do that and put people on there who change how we feel about each other. Because, oh my God, since we're all glued to our screens all the time anyway, right now, couldn't we just maybe sneak in a couple of people there who do the thing that he did in some way, which brings together everybody of all stripes, of all opinions, on all sides of the aisle? I mean, that was the thing, is that liberal or conservative, people came together. They just thought he was wonderful.
Yeah. Well, it also feels like, you know, the thing that, and you hit upon this, which is after the real world ended, all of you in those early seasons basically went back to your lives, continued to pursue the dreams that you had before the real world. There was not this notion that you're going to take this thing and it's going to spin off into what now people would call a brand, right? Which is that people sign up for these shows because they're thinking less about, well, I want to be the next Bachelor or the next Bachelorette, or I want to be, you know, the one who wins Big Brother. They're thinking about after this. Even if I get voted off early, I'm going to take this and I'm going to launch a tequila brand.
It's always a tequila brand, yeah.
Right? It's something that this is used as a jumping off point for something else.
Yeah.
But that wasn't after the real world ended, you and Pam did what?
Pam was a medical student when she did the show. I was a budding, would-be, hopefully, professional cartoonist. I'm a professional cartoonist. Pam's a doctor.
There you go.
That's what we did. I mean, not to knock anybody who's
I get it.
Hey, no. They go on reality TV and they can turn it into a career. We know a lot of people who are doing this, and you know what? It's what the market will bear. If they can go out there and do this stuff, they go on a couple of reality TV shows and then, do this. But now it's become like sort of a pipeline to celebrity, a pipeline to, to creating a brand, and I guess it's okay. But it's very far afield from where it started, which was what they were trying to do with the show, which was they did not want people who wanted to go Hollywood.
Right.
They looked around hard, and if they smelled it on you, you didn't get on the show. I mean, I know from the producers later, they talk about it, they just had to give up because they couldn't get an honest cast anymore. I mean, like they would be interviewing someone and saying, okay, you are 23 years old, you're a bartender, living in Los Angeles, and you look like a fashion model. You're telling me you have no aspirations for Hollywood at all? Like, no, man, I'm here for a good hang. It's like, sure you are. Okay. And it's like, whatever. They're pretty, they're charming, and they'll go on there and they'll fight. Whatever.
Yes.
They just got worn down because, when we tried out for the show, we thought it was a huge number. 30,000 people tried out for The Real World. And for years, that seemed like a gigantic number. And I'd always felt like I won the lottery. Now, I think because of social media, like somebody who's got a cute cat has got 30,000 people following them
on social media.
On social media.
Yeah.
These numbers don't mean anything anymore.
Do you and Pam watch reality shows now, and do you have a favorite?
Yeah, we watch. We don't watch a lot of the reality shows. We watch a lot of the game shows, because the reality shows we watch, we are in pain for the people doing them, because we're watching them skid out and possibly ruin their lives. And we just want to go there and tell them, like, you need to stop talking. Or like, did you try to clean that up in your interview? It's, again, we want to teach a master's class on how to do reality TV. It's like, you said, if you said that, like, okay, you got to go back and clean that up in your interview. You got to apologize. You got to apologize big and say that you were stupid. But as far as us, we used to watch Survivor for a bunch of years, Top Chef, Project Runway. Right now, we're really hooked on Portrait Artist. I think is it called Portrait Artist of the Year?
I don't even know that one.
It is you'd love it.
Portrait Artist of the Year.
It has the vibe of the British Baking Show, which we also love.
Yes.
But they paint portraits, and it couldn't be more benign.
I love that.
They sit there for 3 hours and they paint somebody's portrait.
Oh, I love that. I'm going to look that up, because like you, we love Top Chef, and Padma Lakshmi has a new show now on CBS, which we love, which is great. But we started to watch we used to watch like The Bachelor, Bachelorette, and Love Is Blind. But then, as you say, you start to realize, like, either the producers are looking for people who are kind of damaged and probably shouldn't be on television and putting them on TV, or only people who are damaged or who have, issues that, and I'm sympathetic to those issues, but they have issues that need to be worked out for real, but are working those issues out on national TV. And that, it almost feels like there was a bit of voyeurism when The Real World started. It was like, what happens when, and now it's like, I don't want to know what happens, because I feel bad for the person who's damaged. I feel bad for the other person that they're interacting with who's also perhaps damaged. And it feels like I shouldn't be watching this. Like a doctor or a psychiatrist should be watching this.
The cringe factor.
Cringe factor.
Yeah, and most of it, a lot of it, is cringe factor. Again, I feel I don't want to crap on reality TV too much, but when we did it, there was cringe factor.
Sure.
You're watching, I mean, you know, I can pick specific moments from myself, and some of my other castmates where embarrassing things were happening. But there was also a vibe that when the embarrassing things happened, you kind of loved them for it, because it showed humanity. It showed that the imperfectness of being a person, opposed to when you're watching a fictionalized television show. Everyone's beautiful or whatnot, and you know, and even in the storytelling, this is like real people being real, and it's like okay, and it's okay. But they often made a point of showing the other side of it when they solved that problem, they worked through it somehow. There was more rooting for the folks on the show.
Yeah, there really was, and I wonder if, and I hadn't thought of this even before I prepped for this interview, but if it's got to be kind of cool to be, and I don't know if you and your children watched your season. Because it would almost be like, hey, do you want to know how mom and dad met? Here's 24 episodes or 24 hours of like.
Our children have watched a little bit of it. They're young adults now, teens and up. And they watched a little bit of it. There's a very rough elephant in the room about watching us on the show because we were not a couple yet.
Yes, I remember.
So my wife, Pam, had a boyfriend and I was dating.
Right.
And can you think of anything more uncomfortable than that? And
it's a real life How I Met Your Mother.
Yeah. Except, I mean, they both know, but yeah, you guys started dating at the end. We don't see any of that. I mean, there's an episode or two devoted to like us almost getting together. And they were ready. The producers were ready. They had a show gassed up and ready to go, and we like dove in and started dating, but the fates aligned and the universe was smart, and we managed to start dating after the show, which is the way you should do it, people. We are probably the earliest reality couple, or the ones who've been together the longest. We do attribute that a lot to the fact that we did not get together on camera. We got together after and had 6 months of getting to know one another and not committing to anything or doing anything or until later. Not too long after, you know.
But still later.
But still later, when the camera stopped rolling.
Are you in touch with the other castmates?
Yeah, some of them. You know, Muhammad lives in the Bay Area. Corey was a bridesmaid in our wedding, and we just had dinner with her and her family like about 2 months ago. We know a lot of the members of the crew. Don't forget, we live with the crew a lot. We don't get to know them so much then, but later. Our crew, which was just this, tough little bunch of people, have gone on to create some of the biggest reality TV shows around.
Really? Who? Like what?
Oh, goodness. Matt Kunitz, who was a lowly, I'm sorry, Matt, I called you lowly. A production assistant back in the day. He's our age. He went on to do Fear Factor. Clay Newbill was, I believe he was credited as assistant director. He's the executive producer on Shark Tank. I mean, I go on.
That's so cool.
Everybody who was in the trenches doing the show with us went on to become like fairly big titans in reality TV.
Well, because of course that would make sense, because the Real World was so groundbreaking that once everybody was like, well, we need our own Real World.
Yeah.
Who knows how to do that? It's the people from the Real World, the people that behind the camera and who are producing and writing, or not writing necessarily, but setting up the casting and all that, right? That would be who you'd go out and hire. But then it makes me think, Judd, because we're both comic book nerds, I'm guessing movie nerds, film, TV nerds.
Yep.
You're like the dude in Terminator 2. Like the Real World is, we don't know when we discover this chip and we re-engineer like the T-800 that we're gonna bring about the end of humanity because the machines are gonna take over. We just think it's really cool technology that we should try to exploit, which is, we don't know when we're in the midst of launching the Real World in the first few seasons, when it seems so groundbreaking and fresh and new and interesting, that this was going to lead to the world that we live in now, which is like we're inundated with reality TV, but also the people who populate those shows have become the culture.
Right, yeah.
Right? It used to be when we were kids, I mean, Tom Cruise is still a movie star. He was a movie star when we were kids, but movie stars were movie stars, right? You and Pam, you were a struggling cartoonist when you were on The Real World. Pam was studying to be a doctor. She's a doctor, you're a cartoonist now, but you have people who've spent their entire lives, their entire working lives, only doing reality TV, doing nothing else. They get cast in different shows, they get cast in reunion shows, and then when you ask them, like, so what are you doing? You're like, oh, I'm gonna be on, XYZ show, and I'm gonna go on this show, or I'm gonna go on the red carpet, or I'm influencing for tequila brands, or makeup brands, or whatever.
Yeah.
There is no one has a career anymore, and yet they're as famous as a Tom Cruise.
Yeah. No, the cultural shift can barely be measured or fathomed. Like we had that proper chasm between, actors on the screen, small screen and big screen. They were light years away from us. They weren't regular people. Mm-hmm. They were actors, and they had their lives, and we didn't know much about it. Mm-hmm. And I guess that was okay. And then, because of reality TV, that line got blurred, and then that line got smaller, and the distance got smaller and smaller, till there's no distance anymore. Somebody tomorrow could go on social media and do a thing, and within a month be one of the most famous people in the whole wide world. And if you were to say that to someone 30 years ago, it's like, that's the stupidest thing I ever heard. It can't happen that quickly. And we'd say, like, it could happen so quickly, and it will. It's like, how? It's like, it's just how we are now. It's all faster. We all have computers in our pockets. We all have screens everywhere. The idea of screens used to be, you go to a movie theater and there's a screen, you're at home and it's on, this boxy thing that you watch. You don't walk around with them 24/7. And, I think, one thing just sort of followed the other. And no, I don't think we thought for a nanosecond when we did the show, and all of us did it for different reasons, but we all thought it would be cool. We all thought it'd be fun. We're going to be on MTV, which was everything, and it's just going to be fun. Not thinking for a second that, and then I'll become an actor. It's like, or
I'm not an actor.
Right? I'm not an actor. Like, oh, you could host something. Like, what would that mean? Like, talking like, like a television anchor or something? Or like, it's like, and by the way, there was like, there was only a handful of shows who had hosts who weren't actual journalists. Like Entertainment Tonight was still kicking around, and kind of the offshoots. There wasn't a million things you could be on, or you couldn't go to your phone. And it's again, there was a lost opportunity, which still might be here, but someone has to do it. But the entire mindset, the entire culture, just, and I don't think it happened quickly, but it happened incrementally.
Would you go on a reality TV show now in 2026?
No. Quickest answer, no. I mean, people have, Pam and I are together, and according to them, we have sort of interesting careers. Pam, we could follow you around as a doctor. And like Pam's like, I'm a researcher. I do a lot of stuff in offices. I do see patients. I'm a cartoonist. I sit around and draw all day. I don't think you guys want to see this. So people have asked us to follow our, it mentioned, do you want to do that? And no, we got it right the first time. We're okay. Why tempt fate? We found each other. We wound up together. We had this amazing experience with being on the show, and Pedro, and we're together, and we have 2 kids and 2 cats and a house, and we are happy. The question that is often posed, like, would you go back? Would you do it again? And that one always throws us. Like, do you mean would we go back to 1994 and do it all over again?
Would you?
Yeah. We get time to be with Pedro again. And people, when they think about reality TV, they don't necessarily, they can't possibly think about it the way we do, which is it's this time capsule for us. This very, very specific part of our lives, which was on TV for 15 hours, which completely changed everything for us, and in many ways has changed the world. But it is something that is completely absent from everything we do during the day and always there at the same time. And I can't explain it better than that. You would just have to be us. We live in a house together. We have our children who are here because we met on a television show. I was telling my daughter the story of how I was almost not cast on the show. And she said, Dad, you gotta stop. Like, what? I can't hear this anymore. It's like, why? It's like, because you're talking about, it's not like you're talking about me dying. You're talking about how I almost didn't exist. And I'm really feeling it. Yeah, I need you to stop talking.
If your children wanted to be on a reality TV show, how would you and Pam react?
It is a very tough thing for us to push back and say you shouldn't do it, because it really worked out for us. You're alive because we did this. Like, Mom, Dad, how could you? Who are you to say we shouldn't do this? Of all people, but at the same time, we'd worry. It's like it's a different world, and I think we'd have to point to them like most people have done reality TV. It doesn't really work out, and there's far too many. It's rough, but at the same time, I don't know, reality TV. It might be a part of national service next, that everybody's got to be on reality TV or something at some point. They have no choice in the matter.
Judd, that is the funniest thing. I don't know if you've actually, because you're a cartoonist and you are an artist who does working on comic books. That does feel like a plot of an awesome comic book. Like, it's almost like The Boys, but like even more meta. Like, you have to be a part of it. Like, everybody has to be on a reality TV show.
Yeah, but the truth is, it could happen at some point in some way.
Somebody may figure out a way. Some company would be like, we have to monetize every human being in America. And how do you do that?
Start small. It's like, hey, start small. Like, we'll pay for 4 years of college, but you got to be on a reality TV show. Like, not a nice one though. Like, what I mean, like, they'll be like, it's going to be bad.
Oh my gosh,
bad stuff. It's like Survivor, but much worse. It absolutely could happen.
You grew up on television. You grew up loving comic books. You have done work on one of my favorite superheroes, Green Lantern, which I absolutely love Green Lantern. For some weird reason, because I always thought it was super weird that a guy with a ring would be like a superhero, but like he is to be one of the most fascinating characters
I'm with you. Yeah.
Right? Like,
yeah.
But you're also an author of a children's book.
Yeah.
What made you decide to do that?
I became a children's book author because I kind of came full circle. I always wanted to do a comic strip. Comic strip is an all ages affair. You do it in the newspaper when we used to have newspapers. It's basically from like 7 to 70 was your audience. And that's all I ever wanted to do. And then I wandered into comic books and graphic novels. I did a graphic novel about Pedro, which is the first thing I ever wrote that was a real story, Pedro and me. I did that. And then I did superhero comics. And then when my son was 7, so this is 13 years ago, he wanted to read some of my Batman comics. And I had to tell him, no, you may not read my Batman comics because you were 7, and these are kind of rough. So I thought, you know what, let me try to do something for him. And so I did a story that like kind of felt like a comic strip in that way, like it was an all ages thing, but it was an action adventure, which is like a superhero story. So it's been coming up on about 12 years. And I just lucked into being able to combine all the things I love. So it's drawn really goofy like a comic strip, but it reads like a superhero comic. And what's especially fun about writing for kids is, for one, kids, they're great, they're wonderfully honest. If they don't like it, they'll let you know. But if they do like it, they let you know. But Pam and I joke that like right now I'm occupying 2 demographics. So the kids will read the books, and their parents are around the age when they watch The Real World, either in middle school through college. And so they know us from the show. And they will say, this guy used to be on television. And it's like, and the kids do not care.
They don't care.
No. And that's fine. I'll take that. They cannot care. They can just keep reading Hilo, and I'm happy.
Yeah.
Like, they like that it's an action adventure about a little boy who flies around, shoots lasers out of his hands. They're happy with that.
Yeah. If The Real World were to debut today in 2026, what would that look like in the age of social media?
One thing they did, and they would still have to do, is they finish filming the show before it airs. That everyone does their 6 months, it's over with, you move out of the house, and then it starts airing, which is good, because if you do it in real time, I can't imagine. Like, because then people will be checking social media, what do people think of me? And they would be sort of changing their performance, they would live their lives differently. So there would be that. But what we're seeing it happen. We know what would happen. So the show airs, and a bunch of people are suddenly famous, and they would clearly be dissecting everything they said and did. They watched a 22-minute show, and then all of those 22 minutes would be talked about and dissected and whatnot. And it wouldn't and somebody would get canceled, as it were. Ignoring the fact like, oh no, this is the first show of 13. You're gonna see this person like kind of grow and change over an arc because we're filming real people, and they're not like this anymore. Or like this argument they had with this person, you're going to see in episode 4. You wouldn't have time.
Yeah.
Everything went. I mean, that's the thing that we had was there was time. You know, people did something on a show, and what happened next? We had a little. It wasn't social media. We had message boards. People would write about it, but no one's reading that stuff.
No. As we talked about how reality TV has evolved, even in your season, in the nascent days, and in the early days of reality TV with The Real World, there was one castmate, housemate in your season who I feel is sort of the prototype for what ultimately became the villain in reality TV, and that was
Puck. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we talk about the sort of yin yang relationship of our season. That it was Puck and Pedro, both occupying very different spaces, and why the show was so popular. Puck was incredibly popular. I mean, it was MTV. #1 show on MTV that time was Beavis and Butthead. #2 show, Real World, who has a living embodiment of Beavis and Butthead on the show. And fun at first, gross, disgusting, and outrageous, and then not so fun. But it showed reality TV probably a good lesson as far as entertainment and programming, a bad lesson for the people who got to deal with it, which is you have a villain. You have someone there to stir it up, which is what Puck actually, would say, that I'm here to stir things up. It's like, you're really not. We're just supposed to be living here. This is just supposed to be our house. We know it's a TV show to them, but to us, we're just living here. But after that, I'm sure producers, when they're putting it together, would say, well, who's our Puck? Who's the one who's going to kind of throw a bomb in this situation? And he, as the story was helpful to making the television show miserable for us, which is why we asked him to leave. I mean, that was the big thing. Like, the dose of reality in doing the show is that the producers told us, that's how long ago this was. They never told us what to do. I want to be clear about that. Like, I don't know what happens now on reality TV, scripted this, directed that, written here. They never told us what to do.
You guys came up with that on your own.
Including at one point, we were talking about that maybe we can ask them to leave, that they told us, they'd take us aside and saying, if you want to ask anyone to leave, that's up to you, this is your house. Like, oh, okay. And they had made such an important deal about telling us that this was our experience. We had never thought we needed permission. That's how on our own we were about it. So light years ago. So, this is our lives and we're living it, and he has to go live his elsewhere.
Thank you very much. This was awesome, man.
Thank you, Vlad. I appreciate it, sir.